welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being with us. My name is Paul Harrell, and once again, this is the Millstone Report. We can't do the program without you watching. Really do appreciate it. It's always great to be with you. So I want to remind you, this portion of the program brought to you by Red Vive Health. That's Red Vive, V-I-V-E, redvivehealth.org/Paul. Experience the healing power of light. We will tell you more about their red light panels and everything you need to know later in the program. Got a great show for you today. More on this, basically now, essentially between the U.S. and China, a trade war igniting, a trade war erupting. The Communist Chinese government not wanting to bend the knee, not wanting to come to the table. And so now, essentially, I mean, we're looking at a situation where it's just going to escalate. And everything I can tell from what I've read, you know, the talking heads out there, it's kind of a game of holdout. Like, who can afford to wait the other person out? You got to wonder, very much like we've got this deep state employee who was relieved of duty because I think she had to do with NATO. She refused to put President Trump's picture on the wall, held an emergency meeting, said something like, we're just going to wait them out for 4 years. That was very much the mentality in the first Trump term. So you got to wonder what's going through the minds of some of these folks geopolitically. Do they believe that these stark changes, this attempt at an economic world financial revolution that Trump's apparently trying to bring to fruition, do they believe it will outlast his second term, outlast his 4-year term? This has got to be the question on somebody like Xi Jinping's mind. So anyway, let's start off. So last night we found out what China was going to do in response to these tariffs, and they basically said, all right, we're going to slap an 84% retaliatory tariff on all U.S. goods in response to Trump. This is CNBC. Tariffs on U.S. goods entering China will rise to 84% from 34% starting April 10th. That's tomorrow, according to a translation of an Office of the Tariff Commission of the State Council announcement. The hike comes in response to the latest U.S. tariff increase on Chinese goods to more than 100% that began at midnight. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent told Fox Business this escalation is a loser for China. So they've pushed back on this. So in response to this, we're getting, 104%? So now they're going to be hit with 104% tariffs, and so then we have this. Okay, so then they decided to manipulate their currency. So last night, Donald Trump was speaking at the NRCC gathering, dinner, banquet, whatever, and he said a bunch of stuff. We got a lot of those clips to go over. Listen to this.
I tell that to other leaders. You got to fight for your country. You're not going to fight for us, but we can't fight for you. We're fighting for other countries. We're trying to make them great without making us great, but those days are over. They steal our intellectual property. They rob our trade secrets. They manipulate their currency to levels that have never been seen before. Today it was announced that China is reducing its currency. Did you see that? Big. In other words, they're going to make up for it. They got every trick in the book. I'll tell you, they are great. You got to hand it to them. They're manipulating their currency today as an offset against the tariffs. Not supposed to do that. The game isn't supposed to be played that way. It makes it very hard for us. But in the end, it's not good because they have to buy oil. See, we don't need oil. We don't need oil and gas. We have more than any other country. They have to buy it. That's where it hurts them when they do that.
So this has been a complaint, the fact that China is in the World Trade Organization and just continues to manipulate their currency. This has been a complaint for a very long time. People were complaining about this in the first Trump term. They were complaining about this before. And my take has always been on the currency manipulation thing, I try to put myself in China's shoes on this issue. In terms of the Federal Reserve and the United States being the world's reserve currency or desperately hanging on to that label. But, so requiring all these countries to do business in U.S. dollars, but also just being able to print and inflate what those dollars are worth at any given time. I would say that there's some countries that probably look at that and say, well, that's currency manipulation as well. I'm just saying the system in and of itself is manipulated all the time. But so in response to the tariffs, China manipulates their currency and sends it down. And we're going to see, I mean, how low can they go? How low are they willing to go? How long are they willing to wait this out? What does all of this mean? Now, according to this person on X called Watcher Guru, they say that the White House says President Trump will not accept a situation where Wall Street is allowed to run the economy. What we're hearing from the administration, at least the rhetoric, the narrative that they're putting out there is that they're doing all of this for Main Street, and that Wall Street, for far too long, we've been judging the economic health of this nation based only on Wall Street, not actually considering the vast majority of the people that actually have to live under Wall Street. And Main Street, and you go all the way back to 2008, and you go, the big banks and Wall Street getting the bailout, and yet Main Street was sold down the river. So that's very much what's going on here. Now, William Wolf from the Center of Baptist Leadership says Trump is staring down China almost single-handedly, bringing our biggest global adversary to the brink without firing a shot, while every neocon and rhino left in the Republican Party is actively undercutting him because tariffs bad. Just heroic stuff. I'm going to come back to that here in just a moment, but this was in response to a Zero Hedge tweet about China having three different options: concede defeat to whatever terms Trump demands, devalue the yuan by 20 to 40%, unleash America's fiscal stimulus, or at least the biggest unleash China's biggest fiscal stimulus in its history. Talking 2 to 3 trillion, which will push its debt off the chart. So it looks like, again, this was a tweet by Zero Hedge back on April the 4th. It looks like, at least in the short term, they've decided to devalue the yuan. Now, this is also happening at a time where China's geographic neighbors are, according to reports, very much eager to sit down and negotiate some sort of new trade deal with the United States. But coming back to this particular point about Trump is staring down China almost single-handedly, and we're looking at the results. We see what the market's doing, okay, what it has done, right? A lot of people are freaking out about it, but others aren't. Polls are actually showing that, the younger generation is not nearly as concerned as the older generation, and that is, it's self-evident. Well, that would be so because there's, the older you are, the more retirement savings you have in the stock market and things like that. But do you remember when Donald Trump said over the weekend that we've got to take our medicine? Do you remember where Secretary Bassett says that we're basically like a bodybuilder on steroids, and so we look really strong, but in reality, our organs are basically, eating themselves because we're taking whatever the economic equivalent of testosterone is to make that analogy work. So it is interesting that Donald Trump is essentially saying, and he said this for a while, in bits and pieces, and I'm paraphrasing, but, it may get worse before it gets better. He has said this. This is a big deal. This is a very mature thing for any leader to tell their people, because it's not something that any of us ever want to hear. Nobody ever wants to hear, hey, things are going to get worse or things may get worse before they get better. No one ever wants to hear that. And yet, when I've seen this narrative kind of pop back up, I used to talk about this all the time. Now, I talked about it in a completely different context. But back when I was on talk radio, one of the things that I would constantly say is we looked at the national debt. This is back when I thought the national debt mattered in a different way than I think it does now, again. And I've talked about that for a long time now on this program. But I talked about this idea that I was looking at the national debt, looking at the deficit, and then looking at America's unfunded liabilities. If you go to the U.S. debt clock, you could always see, $100 trillion. I don't know what it is now, but it's just a gargantuan amount of, quote, unfunded liabilities. And, you look at the massive entitlement programs that take up, most of, limit the amount of discretionary spending you have. The term is escaping me right now. But it's just a giant portion of our budget every year goes to these And so I was talking about it in terms of like a welfare reform or an entitlement reform, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. This was back in the day. Talking about sacrifice. Specifically the term that I would use is, are Americans willing, and I never thought they really were, are Americans willing to actually go through a little bit of a hard time in order to come out on the other side better for it? And what's funny about this is like 15 years ago, I actually got to ask this question to Mike Pence, Governor Mike Pence of Indiana. And it's on, and I've got it on video. I went and pulled it. I didn't know if I could find it, but I did find it. And I know we know everything about Mike Pence now, but just to illustrate my point here, this is, when was this? 14 years ago. I was in Las Vegas at an Americans for Prosperity. See, this is crazy how things work like this. At an Americans for Prosperity bloggers conference. And Mike Pence was there. That's very young me, 14 years ago, beardless. And that's Mike Pence. And, of course, the video quality is not great. The audio quality is not great. But what I asked him was this very question about are Americans willing to sacrifice?
Absolutely. One of the most important, issues facing our nation now, we believe, is our financial plight. Do you think the American people are ready to hear the honest answers about the possible sacrifices that we might have to make in order to secure our children's future?
I think that at no time in my lifetime have I sensed the people of this country are ready to roll their sleeves up and make the hard choices to put our fiscal house in order. And that's why it is my hope and it's my fervent prayer that the American people will, in the midst of what is going to be a very wild and woolly campaign season, will get behind men and women that are standing for limited government, fiscal responsibility, because I think the country, not just about winning elections, is ready really to win the future by reordering our government along the lines of traditional American ideals. Yes, sir.
So platitudes, a lot of platitudes. We know so much more about Mike Pence now. By the way, like if I needed more motivation this morning to like recommit to my health goals in my diet right now, that's certainly the motivation that I needed. Looking at that from 14 years ago. So the whole point here, he goes on to actually talk about creative select, because I ask him again, are Americans willing to sacrifice? Let me see if we can hear it here. It's not much.
I'm sorry. Our last question, I apologize. Just lastly, do you think that in order for us to get out of this mess, it will require sacrifice? Would you go on record saying that it will require some form of sacrifice?
Well, I think it's going to require leadership. It's going to require leadership and creativity and reform. But if we act now...
Okay, leadership and creativity, and then it was just more platitudes. So what's fascinating about this is, yeah, we know who Mike Pence is. Yeah, we know he was spineless. Yeah, we know, how he destroyed his political career, really. I mean, they thought the whole J6 thing, though, was going to squash populism, though, right? I mean, they had this track lined out for the uniparty favorite, Mike Pence, that was going to, I'm not that kind of, I'm not a MAGA person. Anyway, that all blew up in their face. Praise the Lord that it did. But creative solutions. So while we're sitting here talking about, back in the day, back in 2010, talking about the deficit or whenever this was, this would have been, well, how long ago was it? Let's see, 14 years ago. So yeah, that's about right. Yeah, 2010. So while we're talking about the unfunded liabilities, the national debt, and everything else, he mentions creative solutions. I think it's so interesting that that's exactly what Donald Trump is doing right now. Say what you want to, but this is Donald Trump is trying what has not been tried in a very, very long time. And he's even talking about things like replacing the income tax, turning the IRS into the external revenue. So you're talking about a creative solution. But at the same time, what's happening? Sacrifice. In this case, in the short term, it's Wall Street that's taking it on the chin, and also people with retirement savings as well. I find the whole thing, just for me personally, I find the whole thing fascinating. If you look at what is actually taking place, the President of the United States is actually saying that we've got to take our medicine. insinuating that the whole system is sick and we've got to take our medicine if we want to get out of this financially. Now, Donald Trump is saying that it's already working. Last night, again, here he is.
This is bigger than any deal. You guys, some of you work for companies. Your companies are peanuts. I don't care how big they are. Compared, this is the largest transaction in the history of our country. And don't let some of these politicians go around saying, because I'm telling you, these countries are calling us up, kissing my ass. They are dying to make a deal. Please, please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything. I'll do anything, sir. And then I'll see some rebel Republican, some guy that wants to grandstand, say, I think that Congress should take over negotiations. Let me tell you, you don't negotiate like I negotiate. Congress takes over negotiating. Sell America fast because you're going to go busted. You don't. I just saw it today. A couple of your congressmen said, I think we should get involved in the negotiation of the tariffs. Oh, that's what I need. I need some guy telling me how to negotiate.
Yeah, and again, the fact that Congress and past presidents have allowed the trade deficits, the trade imbalances to continue, the manufacturing to go overseas. Now Donald Trump's trying to stop that, admitting that we have to take our medicine, and now Congress is like, no, we want to take it back from you when they have done nothing to stop these problems. And the ones that have a huge problem with it, like Rand Paul, won't address that if tariffs are so bad, why do other countries do it? If tariffs are so bad, why do other countries do it? And if tariffs are so bad, why are all these countries trying to get a meeting with President Trump to renegotiate this deal? Food for thought. Now, one of the other things that Donald Trump said, and I hope he means it, and I hope he actually means it, and we actually get real accountability and arrests out of this, is that the idea of opening up our border, and what we're going to see later in the show, opening up our border and then giving these people work permits and then signing them up for Social Security numbers and then registering them to vote and then getting them to the polls is treason. Listen.
Our opponents are not afraid that our America First policies will fail. They're terrified that our strategy will succeed and we're going to get bigger and stronger and better as a party, and that's what's happening. And that is what's happening. It's going to be something, and I'm actually looking forward to the midterms. I really are. We're going to prove that all of their treasonous years of betrayal will not be forgotten, because it's treason. What they did is treason. When they allowed millions of people to pour in through open borders from all over the world, they came. To me, that's treason. What they've done to our country is unthinkable. The money we have to spend to take people out. And then we have judges that say, no, let Trende Araqua come back into our country. They want him to come back in. Killers. They cut off a man's...
They really and you got the IRS. We'll talk about that if we have time. You got the IRS, the head of the IRS stepping down because now ICE wants to be able to get the data in the IRS about the illegals here that either file for taxes. And you think, well, why would they do that? Well, maybe they don't. I saw Brian Cates say something about, well, here's the deal. Elon Musk told us at that Wisconsin rally, before the judicial elections, he told us that not only were they given Social Security numbers, then they were signed up for max Medicaid benefits. After that, they were signed up for IRS reimbursements. Max reimbursements from the IRS on zero income. So when Elon Musk also talks about magic money machines where they just create money out of thin air and can send it anywhere they want, the question then becomes, how many illegal aliens has the IRS been giving money to? How many illegal aliens has the IRS just been sending money to? Is it once a year? Are they sending them money once a month? You talk about treason, and you talk about how this wasn't just like, oh, the government fails because the government's inefficient. No, this was an active plan to destroy the country demographically, to create a one-party state on the federal level. That's what this was. Other thing, Donald Trump, speaking of tariffs, other thing he announced last night is that he wants the drugs that Americans take. He wants the medicine that Americans take to be made in the United States. Listen.
But we're going to tariff our pharmaceuticals, and once we do that, they're going to come rushing back into our country because we're the big market. The advantage we have over everybody is that we're the big market. So we're going to be announcing very shortly a major tariff on pharmaceuticals, and when they hear that, they will leave China, they will leave other places because they have to sell. Most of their product is sold here. But we're going to tariff our pharmaceuticals, and once we do that, they're going to come rushing back into our country.
Got to wonder about that Pfizer stock about right now, right? So then we have Scott Bessent. For the next 4 years, the Trump agenda is focused on Main Street.
For too long, financial policy has served large financial institutions at the expense of smaller ones. No more. No more. This administration aims to give all banks the chance to succeed, whether it's JP Morgan or your local mortgage and loan. It aims to get capital to Americans who need it by getting bureaucracy out of the way. For the last 4 decades, basically since I began my career in Wall Street has grown wealthier than ever before, and it can continue to grow and do well. But for the next 4 years, the Trump agenda is focused on Main Street. It's Main Street's turn. It's Main Street's turn to hire workers. It's Main Street's turn to drive investment. And it's Main Street's turn to restore the American dream.
Fascinating messaging coming out. I mean, obviously, I hope that is true. I hope that materializes. I hope those policies, whatever the policies are, actually accomplish those results. Incredible to hear that. This used to be something you might hear. Certainly, you used to hear this type of messaging from the Democrats. Of course, their policies, along with the Republicans, the uniparty, they all say stuff like this. And yet, it never really, it really hasn't materialized for a lot of reasons, like trade, like the manufacturing going, like illegal immigration driving wages down. Right? Bernie Sanders famously calling the open borders policy a Koch brothers policy. Yes, I know. It's irony that 15 years ago I was at an Americans for Prosperity bloggers conference in Las Vegas. But, hey, you learn new things. You learn new things. You learn people's goals and that sort of thing, and you make different decisions, come to different conclusions. Zero Hedge, the problem with devaluing the yuan to offset tariffs is Trump can just go from 104% to 104,000%. Here we see that the yuan absolutely was disintegrating last night. We had this was Liberation Day. That's the yuan crashing and recovering. And then we have 50+% tariffs right here, and it just takes a nosedive. So the currency manipulation to try to compensate for this. So is Donald Trump. I could totally see him doing that, just going out and be like, okay, 104%, it's now 104,000%, very much like the wall just got 10 feet higher. This is Trump from last night, again, reminiscing about what the economy looked like in his first term, before COVID and the pandemic.
The first 4 years, we had the most successful country in history in terms of economics. We had an 88% increase in the stock markets. We had an 88% increase. There's never been any president that had an 88% increase. We had 88%, and there were a lot of happy people. And I think we're going to do much better than that this time, because this time I'm doing what I want to do with respect to the tariffs. I think we're going to do much better. And just remember the numbers. When you get up to $2 billion a day, $2 billion a day, they're saying, sir, can't be that, can it? I said, yeah, it can. It's the biggest transaction ever made. This is bigger than any deal. You guys, some of you work for companies. Your companies are peanuts. I don't care how big they are. Compared, this is the largest transaction in the history of our country. And don't let some of these politicians go around saying, because I'm telling you, these countries are calling us up, kissing my ass.
So that's the lead up to the clip that we just played for you. So Torba, the CEO, founder of Gab, posted this screenshot of KG on X, and I found this an interesting. Because I feel like this is true in a lot of regards. That it says they tried to engineer an economy where nothing you did really mattered, but food could be delivered on demand by illegal immigrants in used cars, and your TV was cheap. Whenever you started to feel meaningless and depressed in this system, they crammed SSRIs and antidepressant drugs into your mouth. This is, I mean, there's a lot more that goes into this, but yeah, I mean, if you really think about it, it really goes right in line with Yuval Harari, one of the deputies, one of the lieutenants from the World Economic Forum, where they talk about this increase in technology. Oh, they fantasize. These guys are terrified of dying, by the way, terrified of dying and being in front of a holy God. And so they are trying to beat death. And so they're coming up with all these ways to try to become immortal. And they want to use technology. They want to use transhumanism to do it. They want to use AI to do it. But then they have this issue, and this Harari guy at the World Economic Forum has talked extensively about this, that's all well and good for the wealthy, but what do we do with the rest of the people? What do we do with the livestock? What do we do with the cattle? What do we do with the sheep? Well, they've already kind of structured in. Now, he said, actually, video games and drugs. He literally said that. Video games and drugs. That's what'll happen. That'll give your life meaning, basically, putting yourself into some sort of digital reality, which is the stuff of utopia that we've seen in cinema before. This stuff of it's fake utopia, but we're going to make the digital world more real than the actual world. That's why Mark Zuckerberg's Meta is so dystopian. But they tried to engineer an economy, and nothing you did mattered. But you did have a cheap television to keep you entertained, and you got food whenever you wanted it delivered. And people are realizing that we're not just an economic zone, right? We're not this, as National Files Patrick Howley says, we're not just a strip mall labor colony, but that's what it has felt like for a very long time. And people are figuring this out. People are figuring it out. You go back and watch the Tucker Carlson interview where Ben Shapiro, this was a long time ago, Ben Shapiro interviewed Tucker. And Tucker said, look, man, we are not subjects of our economic system. We don't pledge some Nicene Creed to our economic system. And this was based around a conversation that Tucker, if he were, emperor, would ban self-driving trucks. Because truckers being able to make, $90,000, $100,000 is like one of the last professions where a high school graduate can take care of his family. And the societal consequences that would have if you were to eliminate that. So that people like Yuval Harari, or whatever his first name is, and what they're saying, they have a completely different vision for the future. And one is based on recognizing that we are human beings created in the image of God, and that needs to be respected, and there's a certain amount of dignity that comes with that, versus this it's just a satanic concept where, life's real simple. It's just, human beings there. But really all that is just different chemicals coming together and interacting with one another. And then you die and then there's nothing. And so we're going to manage what that looks like for you in a way that just totally discounts you as an individual, you as having any sort of value outside of what you can contribute to the system or economics. It's communism. It is communism. And so when I say that, from what I can tell, this looks like an attempt, and there's a lot of other moving pieces, but an attempt at some sort of financial revolution, I really believe that. That's what I'm seeing as I read these headlines. Here is one of the Shark Tank guys talking about how egregious China is on intellectual property.
104% tariffs on China are not enough. I'm advocating 400%. I do business in China. They don't play by the rules. They've been in the WTO for decades. They have never abided by any of the rules they agreed to when they came in for decades. They cheat, they steal IP. I can't litigate in their courts. They take product, technology. They steal it, they manufacture it, sell it back here. Never has an administration.
400% tariffs? What would that
I
look
want
like?
Xi on an airplane to Washington to level the playing field. This is not about tariffs anymore. Nobody has taken on China yet, not the Europeans, no administration for decades. As someone who actually does business there, I've had enough. I speak for millions of Americans who have IP that have been stolen by the Chinese. I have nothing against the Chinese people. They brought great literacy, art, and tech to.
So that's Kevin O'Leary. I always love it when they always have to qualify. I have nothing against the Chinese people. You don't have to qualify. Only maybe on CNN because that's where he's at. But the leftist brain is like, oh, so you're saying he's trying to cut off so you're saying it's all Chinese people, and it's I hate the qualification. I do it all the time as well. I mean, it's easy, it's the kind of the pot calling the kettle black because I qualify as well. We've been trained to do it, but when I see other people do it, it's easy to call out, right? I'm sure I'll do it later in the show without even knowing it. Before we go any further, let me tell you about Red Vive Health. I want you to go to redvivehealth.org/Paul. That's redvivehealth.org/Paul and experience the healing power of light. Look at those red light panels. They got red light and near-infrared light. You can toggle between the two, or you can get both at the same time, which is what I recommend you do. Elevate your game. This will enhance your athletic performance. For those of you who are in the gym, boost recovery, promote faster wound healing. Anybody out there with wounds? According to research, the utilization of red light and near-infrared light therapy has significant benefits such as reducing muscle fatigue, improving muscle strength and endurance, facilitating fat loss and muscle growth responses resulting from exercise, as well as accelerating the recovery process. But that's not all. Again, you also have the muscle and joint inflammation aspect of it, stimulate your cellular energy. You're going to feel a huge energy boost. I can testify that you feel amazing after you sit in front of one of these things, especially if you do it every day. It really compounds, and your body starts to crave it, right? Not in any kind of weird dependency way, but you understand what I'm saying. Also, we're talking about anti-aging properties because of what it does to the collagen. The red light stimulates the collagen, better collagen production, wrinkles. We're talking about less wrinkles. We're talking about getting rid of skin, hyperpigmentation, that sort of thing. All of this, it does that and much more. Do the research yourself. Check it out. redvivehealth.org/Paul. That's redvive, V-I-V-E, health.org/Paul. Get the discount and support the stuff we're doing here on the Millstone Report. We very much appreciate it. Okay, so we got one more clip here from Secretary, U.S. the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, on news that China is essentially kicking off this trade war, that it's going to be tit for tat, at least for the time being. This is what he said this morning.
Maria, I think it's unfortunate that the Chinese actually don't want to come and negotiate because they are the worst offenders in the international trading system. They have the most imbalanced economy in the history of the modern world. And I can tell you that this escalation is a loser for them. That they have some very smart, the economists, the academicians, technocrats within their bureaucracy, and they would be telling the leadership that we do not have the edge here. They are the surplus country, that their exports to the U.S. are 5 times our exports to China. So they can raise their tariffs, but so what?
So they can raise their tariffs, but so what? So basically what we're hearing from the administration and others is that the United States has all the cards. That's what they're saying. I'm not an economist. I don't know. I can just tell you what others are saying, and we have to wait and see what the results are actually going to be. This portion of the program of the Millstone Report brought to you by Curable CBD, Curable Premium Health. I want you to go check out their great CBD products over at curable.com. Use promo code Paul20. We'll tell you more about them here in just a moment. All right, moving on. This is a good time, good break here. We need to talk about Homeland Security Secretary Christie now. And I hate to do it because I don't like to look a gift horse in the mouth, right? Here's a qualification. I'm not comparing her to a horse. But you know the idea of you look a gift horse in the mouth is the idea that you get a free horse and then you would inspect the horse's teeth. Oh, the teeth aren't. There's something wrong with the teeth. Wait a second. This is a free horse. What are you doing here, man? Like, who cares what the horse's teeth look like? So I get that because look, we want the illegal immigrants to be rounded up. We want the job to be done. We want the mass deportations. They're not happening fast enough. And I guess that would be maybe my biggest qualm here is that they're not happening nearly fast enough. And so when I get these border Barbie photo ops, look, I know a thing or two about performance, and that's what this is. This is a performance. This is, it's theater, and it's really frustrating, and it's getting ridiculous. Okay, and I'm gonna show you a little bit of what I mean. So Eric Metaxas, he's actually criticizing how she dresses. That's the latest thing this morning. But there was something from yesterday we're going to get to here in a minute. Eric Metaxas writes, who is advising Kristi Noem on how to dress? Dressing up like a cutesy Cupid doll. Is that how you say that? Is that a thing? I don't know what is a Cupid doll. A Cupid doll? Let's just say cutesy doll. Dressing up like a cutesy doll makes her and the U.S. government look fundamentally unserious in what is a very serious issue. Who will tell Kristi Noem it's unprofessional and hurting the cause? Someone, please. So here she is, just wearing a white T-shirt with a hat on, and you got the hair, you got the glam. And look, nobody can deny, if you're going to put a woman in a position like this, a woman in a position that really traditionally would be held by a man, something like that Homeland Security, right? But of course, in all of her videos, she's surrounded by men who are actually doing the work. They're the ones actually that have the muscle, the know-how, the law enforcement skill to take down some of the most dangerous criminals on the face of the earth. The whole thing just it's just ridiculous. And look, I get it. Kristi Noem's a politician, and she is wanting to be popular among the American people. This is unavoidable. I'm not saying there's not a public servant out there that, doesn't have it's unavoidable, though. You're always going to have somebody, she wants to move up. She wants to go somewhere else after this. She wants to run for office, run for a national office. Maybe she wants to run for president, whatever. So, she's on Fox News or she's doing all these, and she's certainly very popular, I'm sure, among boomer, the boomer generation, because she's all glammed up and everything else. But this is cringe. It just is. It's cringe. And if you don't think this is cringe, maybe you think that this is just okay. Lay off. You're being, you're being too hard on her. Lay off because it's very taboo for a man to criticize a woman, especially over the way she dresses in this day and age. But let's go to this. Okay, this was posted yesterday from the secretary's own X account. Human traffickers, drug smugglers, 18th Street gang members spent the morning in Phoenix with our brave ICE and Arizona law enforcement arresting these dirtbags and getting them off the streets. Let's see if I can make this widescreen. And so here she is, holding a military-style rifle. Watch this.
Here we are with Marco and Brian today. They're letting me roll with them. We're going to go out and pick up somebody who I think is got charges of human trafficking. Earlier had an op that swept up somebody who was wanted for murder. So appreciate the good work that they do every day, and we appreciate them working to make America safe.
Okay, so yeah, she's right. I mean, we appreciate the work. We appreciate the work that they're doing every day. That's great. She's exactly right. And they've allowed her to roll with them, and they're going to go arrest some folks. But this, first of all, look at how she's holding the rifle. It's so cringe. First, and not to mention, like, I think the barrel is certainly angled, towards the front, but it looks like it's pointed straight at this guy's head. And then look how she's gripping it here, and then I mean, look at how she's gripping it there. I mean, it's just on the pistol grip there. It's just, and I'm not some expert on firearms, but I know that's not how you hold a weapon, right? So it's just cringe. It's cosplaying. It's doing the job. It's pretending to do the job men will do. And it just kind of makes me wonder, like, is her whole schedule, Is Kristi Noem's whole schedule just like opening up her calendar every day and seeing, because she's done this so many other times. Is her whole schedule just opening up a calendar and seeing, okay, where's the next photo op? Where's the next law enforcement photo op? It seems like that's all her job is. I could be wrong. I'm sure I am wrong. There's a lot more going on. But it seems like one of her main jobs is to link up with law enforcement who are about to go on a raid or who have just finished a raid and show up all dolled up and, put on a costume and then post it to social media to make everybody think that, you're doing something. And I'm just to the point where I'm like, just do the job, but we don't need all of this. We don't need all of this girl boss, G.I. Jane nonsense because it is cringe. All I'm telling you is maybe it's popular with a specific demographic. That doesn't meaning that it's right. All I'm saying is for my age group, my demographic, John Harris, who I really respect, I'm dying of cringe. People like Eric Metaxas, dying of cringe. It's just getting ridiculous. So that's my rant on Governor Kristi Noem, and it also brings me to this segment.
And let us confess our faith today in the words of the Sparkle Creed. I believe in the non-binary God.
And now it's time for I'm Already Against Women Clergy. You don't have to convince me.
All right, so for this episode's I'm Already Against Women Clergy, you don't have to convince me, courtesy of, once again, it's almost always Protestia because they're the best. They're a great follow. Give them a follow at Protestia. They write, when the preacher introduces herself with her non-binary pronouns and astrological sign. Listen to this. By the way, it just doesn't feel like church to me. It feels like Planet of the Apes 2 when they're like worshiping the nuclear bomb.
My name is Reba. I use they, them pronouns. I am queer in both identity and politics. I am a student at Vancouver School of Theology and a candidate for ordination in the Anglican Church of Canada. I think every dog is the most beautiful dog in the world. I'm an Aries with a Scorpio moon, and I moonlight as a voice actor on a fiction podcast.
I'm an Aries with a Scorpio moon. I'm a queer, I think she says here, but I'm a queer Christian. Here's my sign. Unbelievable. Let's keep going.
I am here today because I am a queer Christian and a Christian queer. I'm here because queer...
I'm a queer Christian and a Christian queer. I'm a queer Christian and a Christian queer. Never heard anybody say it like that.
I'm here because queer and Christian are two of the most important threads running through my life. And
all right, let's analyze this. So being queer, she says, and being Christian are two of the most important aspects of her life. Okay, so that's going to be very interesting to me. I'm very interested. I want to know, I think we all know what the queer thread is, but how do you mesh that with the Christian standpoint, and what exactly do you mean by, quote, Christian, end quote?
So interwoven that I couldn't separate them even if I wanted to.
Okay, back up, listen.
And they are so interwoven that I couldn't separate them even if I wanted to.
So the queerness and the, quote, Christianness, end quote, are so interwoven she cannot separate her queerness from her Christianity. Okay, I'm very intrigued here. How exactly is that the case?
Queerness shapes all my relationships, my self-understanding, my politics and theology, and in general, just how I move through the...
Did she pick up on that? Queerness shapes all my relationships and my theology. Oh, okay. Well, so then it's not Christian. I mean, I know we know this, but her Christianity, her theology, therefore her Christianity is defined by her queerness. So this idea that Christianity is the standalone thing in her life and queerness is the standalone thing, and they're interwoven together is not really, it's not accurate at all. It's queerness. It's all queerness. It's all LGBTQ, RSTLNE, would you like to buy a vowel, woke, sex, religion.
The world. Queerness for me means a diverse and chosen community, a family that is committed to radical inclusion, justice, and the abolition of all false boundaries and binaries. It has fundamentally changed my relationship to Christianity, and I genuinely believe that being queer has taught me how to be a better Christian.
There
Put
we go.
differently.
So here we go. So the queerness has actually conquered the Christianity in her life. That's the truth. We start out by saying, I'm a queer, I'm a Christian. They're interwoven, but we really quickly realize that queerness is what defines her Christianity. And when that's the case, there actually is no Christianity at all.
The main reason that I'm still a Christian at all is because I found that there is something very queer at the heart of Christianity.
Okay.
A call to resist harmful and oppressive structures, the breaking down of every binary and boundary that constrains and divides us.
Yeah, so it's just absolutely, I mean, that's obviously a lie from the pit of hell. There's no truth at all in that. But it also is a example of somebody who is completely and totally deceived and obsessed with themselves. I would even speculate that this, type of person is also kind of based on these narcissistic tendencies, which is really, I mean, that's in many regards what sin is in our lives when we just refuse to let go of it, refuse to admit that we are sinners, refuse to admit that we need to be saved from our sin, that we are not perfect. It all comes really down to selfishness or narcissism and that sort of thing. So, this is some Canadian church, and it is absolutely a shame. I mean, it really is. But there are people like that. There's people like this all over the place, and in the midst of this, there's also actual biblical churches out there who are striving to preach the true gospel. But this is certainly a false gospel. So that concludes our segment.
This has been I'm Already Against Women Clergy. You don't have to convince me.
All right, so moving on now, we had an interesting piece of literature crosses my desk about the Vatican. Now, just full disclosure here for you Catholics out there. If you don't know it, I'm not a Catholic. I'm a Westminster Confession of Faith Presbyterian. That's kind of where my lane is, and I'm very happy there. But I do have Catholic friends. I have conservative Catholic friends, and we talk about the Pope a whole lot here and there. You can imagine, right? But this over on stream.com, it's a piece written by Jules Gomez, or Gomes. Vatican doctrine czar permits genital mutilation in cases of acute gender confusion. So this is from the cardinal by the name of Victor Manuel Fernandez. So Victor Manuel Fernandez, according to this report, has devised a loophole in Rome's recent ruling against gender ideology. Okay, this is interesting. This was back on April the 4th. He writes, in a historic rupture with Catholic teaching, the head of the Vatican's doctrine watchdog has issued clarifications permitting the mutilation of gender-confused individuals who are seeking gender reassignment. Quote, there are cases outside the norm, such as strong dysphorias that can lead to an unbearable existence or even suicide, end quote. Again, that's from the Cardinal Victor Manuel Fernandez. I don't know much about Catholic hierarchy, but according to this headline, they've dubbed him the Vatican Doctrine Czar. Okay, so apparently he has some sort of special authority, right? He's not the Pope, but he is, from what I can read, kind of maybe the Pope's right-hand guy. One of them. He goes on, we do not want to be cruel and say that we do not understand the conditioning of the human person and the deep suffering that exists in some cases of dysphoria, which has also been manifested since childhood. So Gomez writes that the Cardinal's statement softening Rome's position on gender ideology was originally delivered to the Catholic Theology faculty and University of Cologne on February 17th in a lecture titled The Ontological Dignity of the Person in Dignitas Infinita. Some clarifications. So exceptional situations don't apply to the death. So this was interesting. So they're carving out this stance where they have said in the past this genital mutilation, becoming a man or trying to become a man which you really can't. It's not something that is Catholic. It's not something that the Catholic Church wants. So Gomez here makes this comparison that there are no such exceptions for things like the death penalty, as the Catholic Church has now come out against the death penalty in recent years. So the papal declaration had ruled that any sex change intervention, as a rule, risks threatening the unique dignity the person has received from the moment of conception. So that was a papal declaration, basically saying, hey, this whole trans thing is not good. But Fernandez clarified with this new piece. It's a reference. It says, as a rule, does not exclude the possibility of cases that fall outside the norm. So if it falls outside the norm, it's okay, such as severe dysphoria, which can lead to an unbearable life or even suicide. These exceptional situations must be evaluated with great care, he said. Sex change is not a merely external change or comparable to normal cosmetic surgery or even an intervention to cure a disease. It is the claim of a change of identity, of wanting to be another person. Gomez writes, in his clarification issued exclusively in German and Italian, the Cardinal also reiterated Pope Francis's magisterial and categorical rejection of the death penalty, a doctrinal pronouncement that has outraged faithful Catholics who affirm the changelessness of magisterial teaching. Now, I mean, as a Protestant, I'll get a dig in here. I mean, that sounds kind of schematic to me. Anyway, it goes on. By rejecting the death penalty, Pope Francis wanted to show the extent of our convictions on the inalienable dignity of the human person, Fernandez explained. Gomez goes on, though, neither Francis nor Fernandez have made any provision for permitting capital punishment in, quote, exceptional situations. So they make a provision for the trans people. There may be an exceptional dysphoria situation, but then they don't do such things for not being in favor of capital punishment. He goes on, Catholic theologian Dr. John Gravino, who predicted the tactics Pope Francis would adopt to change magisterial teaching on sexuality, told The Stream that LGBT equality in the Church has been a primary objective of Catholic leftists since the 70s. And that's but it really all changed a few years ago. So this was, interestingly enough, back at the beginning of March, a guy by the name of Mark Ramirez in USA Today wrote a piece on Pope Francis. Who am I to judge? With 5 words, Pope Francis set new tone for Catholic Church. Who am I to judge? Those are the 5 words. With those 5 words, Pope Francis signaled that his papacy was going to be different from his predecessors, especially when it came to LGBTQ, RSTL, and would you like to buy Val woke sex religion. In 2013, the Pope was barely a few months into his pontificate when reporters pressed him about the issue of gay priests as he returned to Rome from a trip to Brazil. Quote, if someone is gay and he searches for the Lord and has goodwill, who am I to judge? Francis said. We shouldn't marginalize people for this. They must be integrated into society. As the 88-year-old pontiff struggles to regain his health while being treated for pneumonia and other health issues at Rome's hospital, LGBT community members and advocates say one of his greatest legacies will be having changed the Roman Catholic Church's approach to LGBTQ issues. More than any previous pope, they say, he has transformed the Vatican's attitude towards the community from one indifference and condemnation to one that is more tolerant and even welcoming. And then we saw that, we saw one of those priests in the northeast of America, last year, blessing same-sex unions and that sort of thing. Interestingly enough about this, as somebody who talks a lot about women clergy, and I've got this from my Catholic friends before. Because, you can look at the mainline Protestant denominations in America, and there's no question that, they let the women in the door, and the women in the door, and we've talked about the reason why. One of the reasons why is because, if you can murder your baby and there's no earthly consequences for it, no civil consequences for it, criminal consequences for it, how's a male preacher going to tell a female that they can't give a sermon, right? They've got the right to murder their children. It's kind of laughable, right? So one by one, some of the, not all, but the Protestant denominations have allowed the women in, which eventually allows the gays in. I mean, that's just the way. That's what's happened. It'd be fascinating. It would be fascinating if somehow the Catholic Church, which has somehow resisted women clergy, to somehow leapfrog over that position and just, let the gays in the door and just be open about it, right? That would be a fascinating. But take note, there is a slippery slope, and that slippery slope follows most of the time. If you go and look, you look at you letting women as part of clergy in, and then you let celibate gay men be pastors, and then you go from that to allowing openly gay, quote unquote ministers. That is the slippery slope. I mean, it is a formula, and you want to know why? People like Vladimir Putin they work against evangelical missionaries in their country. It's because they look at the fruits of what our evangelical Protestantism has become over here, and they're like, we don't want any part of that. At least that's got to be one reason. Anyway, it's fascinating what's going on. That crossed my desk, and I hadn't heard anything about that, specifically with now opening the door to transgender and genital mutilation. If it's an extraordinary case, which I think should enrage conservative Catholics. And again, I'm not a Catholic. I'm just reporting you the news as I see it, but it is certainly concerning. That's all the time that we have today for this edition of the Millstone Report. Unless I'm providentially hindered, I'm going to be back here tomorrow wishing you a happy Thursday. And I hope all of you have a great rest of your what is today? Wednesday? Yeah, it's Wednesday. Before we go any further, I do want to tell you about Curable Premium Health and their great CBD products. I want you to get your CBD from curable.com. That's KURIBL.com. And use promo code Paul20 and save 20%. If you've never tried CBD, I think now's the time to do it, especially if you're suffering from any kind of chronic pain or general unwellness. This is something that can help you. It is. There's a lot of stuff out there, toxins, poisons, and everything else. CBD is a natural remedy. This is not something Big Pharma wants you to know. They would much rather you be hooked on, opioids or something else. But this is natural products. Not only is it good for to ingest with the tinctures, but the muscle cream is fantastic, and the sleep gummies. Don't forget about sleep gummies, 10 milligrams CBD. Plus, they've added 3 milligrams of melatonin. So, if you're a CBD user, then you know that this stuff works. But if you haven't ever tried Curable, I don't think you really understand how good this stuff is. So, I want you to give it a try. If you've never tried CBD before, do some research and give it a try. They've got free shipping across the website, and you're also going to save 20% on top of that when you use my name, Paul20. The code is Paul20. That's KURIBL.com, curable.com, and use promo code Paul20. God bless everybody out there watching. We really appreciate you being with us, and we will see you tomorrow.
The very foundation of the Christian faith is based